Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's live reading from Brilliant as the Sun, a retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, the Sages of Naimisharanya. We are going to begin chapter 8, Krishna saves his devotees. As Krishna is preparing to depart for Dwarka, Ashwatthama releases 6 Brahmastra weapons to destroy the Pandavas and their unborn grandchild. Krishna personally saves them. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Queen Kunti, the Pandavas' mother, offers him beautiful prayers. Yudhishthir then convinces Krishna to stay longer in Hastinapur. Chapter 8, verses 1 to 4. Seated on covered palanquins, the royal ladies, headed by Kunti, Gandhari, and Draupadi, led the funeral procession to the Ganges where the deceased's last rites would be performed. With their disheveled hair hanging loose and their eyes red from weeping, they beat their breasts and wailed in sorrow, calling out the names of their slain husbands, sons, and fathers. Hearing those pitiful cries, people thought the time of universal destruction had arrived. The Pandavas, with Yudhishthir at their head, followed in chariots along with Dhritarashtra and Sanjay. Krishna rode with Arjun. Numerous sages headed by Dhaumya and Narad walked alongside the procession. Reciting sacred chants, arriving at the river, they offered sacraments from the fallen warriors. When the ceremonies were complete and the Pandavas had taken their ritual bath in the Ganges, Krishna and the sages consoled them by explaining the transcendental wisdom of the Vedas. Chapter 8, verses 5 to 15. Krishna said, "Do not lament. All these heroes have attained higher regions of enduring happiness. None in this world can avoid death, and for a warrior there is no better way to die than at the edge of weapons." A few days later, Krishna met privately with the 5 Pandavas and Draupadi. "My dear Yudhishthir," he said, "I am pleased to see you again ruling as the emperor of the world." With a sorrowful heart, Yudhishthir replied, "We have all paid heavily for my ambition." Krishna consolingly put his arm on Yudhishthir's shoulder. "You are not to blame for these warriors' deaths." Turning to Draupadi, he continued, "They condemned themselves to death on that fateful day when they insulted this chaste lady." Seeing Yudhishthir still morose, Krishna added, "Nevertheless, if you fear the sin of killing your relatives, you can perform 3 horse sacrifices." Embracing the brothers and offering blessings to Draupadi, Krishna then left to see the sages, headed by Vyasadev before departing for Dwarka. Later that day, the Lord ascended his chariot accompanied by Satyaki and Uddhav. The 5 Pandavas, along with the women in the family, stood next to it. Suddenly, 6 fiery Brahmastra missiles descended on the party, one headed for each of the Pandavas, who hurriedly drew their swords in a futile gesture of self-defense. The 6th missile targeted Uttara, who was at the time heavily pregnant with Arjun's grandchild. In great terror, Uttara at once called out to Krishna, "O Supreme Lord, Master of the universe, if you desire my death, I do not mind, but please save my embryo." Seeing the danger facing his devotees, Krishna released his Sudarshan disc to protect the 5 brothers simultaneously. As the supersoul residing in everyone's heart, he personally covered Uttara's embryo, shielding both the unborn child and his young mother from the devastating effect of Brahmastra. When the dreadful glare of the weapons subsided, Uttara collapsed in a faint. Draupadi, Kunti, and the 5 Pandav brothers hastily gathered around her, fearing that she and her child had been killed. Relieved to see the symptoms of life, they looked up at Krishna in bewilderment. What had just happened? Krishna reassured them, "This was the work of Ashwatthama, intending to destroy your lineage. Do not worry, Uttara will soon recover and her child is unharmed. As for Ashwatthama, he has exhausted the last of his power and does not pose any further threat." Chapter 8, verses 17 to 18. Shaken by the unexpected attack, the elderly Kunti slowly rose from Uttara's side and unsteadily approached the Lord. Folding her hands in a gesture of prayerful gratitude and with tears of love streaming from her eyes, Kunti knelt beside the chariot on which Krishna stood and lowered her head to the ground to offer obeisance. With a look of alarm on his face, Krishna jumped down from his chariot and gently raised her. Aunt Kunti, what are you doing? There is no need for you to show me such respect. You are my superior. With a choked voice, Kunti replied, My dear Krishna, I offer my respects to you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. My dear aunt, objected Krishna, I am simply your nephew. Chapter 8, verses 19 to 22. Kunti shook her head. You are the invisible supersoul of all existence, residing within and without. Though you control everything, ignorant people do not understand this, just as a child does not see the puppeteer moving puppets. Even the liberated sages find it hard to perfectly know you, what to speak of a simple woman like me. Aunt and nephew stood looking tenderly at one another, and as Kunti continued, Though you are the original Supreme Lord, you have come as the son of my brother Vasudev, giving joy to his wife Devaki. The cowherd Nanda and his wife Yashoda are even more blessed because they raised you and were able to relish your pastoral pastimes in Vrindavan. Tears flowed from Kunti's eyes as she stroked Krishna's face with motherly affection. I offer my respect to petals, who is always decorated with a lotus garland, resembles a lotus flower, and whose feet are marked with lotuses. Chapter 8, verses 23 to 24. Kunti once more knelt and placed her head at Krishna's feet, but Krishna again lifted her and she went on speaking. You rescued your own mother only once when you released her from Kamsa's prison, but you have shown me, your widowed aunt, even more mercy, for you saved me and my sons repeatedly from the series of dangers. Remembering the many threats she had faced and how the Lord had always rescued her, Kunti wept. You protected Bhim from certain death when the evil-minded Duryodhan fed him poisoned food. Then by your grace alone we survived Duryodhan's plot to burn us to death in our sleep. Kunti shuddered as she remembered that fearful night in Varnavat, how after escaping from the blazing house, they raced through the dark and perilous forest in fear of their lives. Without your protection, how could we have survived the attacks of the fearsome cannibals, Baka and Hidimba, and other hardships we faced whilst living in the wilderness? Then came the great battle. Duryodhan's army was far superior to ours. His generals were unconquerable. Yet, thanks to you, my sons emerged victorious, and now you have miraculously saved us yet again from Ashwathama's deadly Brahmastra missiles. You and your sons are now safe, Krishna reassured her. Your trials are over. Chapter 8, verses 25 to 27. I do not mind any of the difficulties we have endured. Indeed, I wish all those calamities would happen again and again so that we could see you again and again, for by seeing you, we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. Kunti continued in earnest tones, O Krishna, a distressed person sincerely turns to you, thinking he has no other shelter. The materially successful, however proud of their wealth, learning, or social position, cannot feelingly call out to you. Therefore, out of kindness, you put your devotee in difficulty, for only those who approach you in a mood of total dependence can attract your full mercy. Folding her hands and bowing her head, Kunti said, I offer my respects. You give yourself to those devotees who love you without material motive. You have nothing to do with those interested in material gain, but you are so kind to your servants that you forgive them even if they inadvertently offend you. You will even fulfill the desires of devotees who seek liberation. Chapter 8, verses 28 to 31. These are the famous prayers of Queen Kunti to Krishna. Being continued. In your form as eternal time, you always destroy those who offend your devotees. You are the original supreme controller without beginning or end, existing everywhere. You are equal to all, giving everyone the results of their own acts. I have many practice you would disagree with you, my dear aunt, joked Krishna. Kunti shook her head, saddened by people's ignorance. No one can truly understand your human-like pastimes as much as they try. Certainly you neither favor nor envy anyone, and only in ignorance do people think otherwise. Tears ran down Kunti's face as she praised her beloved Lord. O soul of the universe, why should anyone expect to perfectly understand you? You never take a material birth or engage in material acts. Yet you repeatedly appear in different forms and act in so many ways. Truly, this is hard to understand. I'm simply bewildered when I think how your mother Yashoda bound you with the rope when you misbehaved. All the fear personified fears you. Seeing Yashoda angry, you were afraid. Tears flooded your eyes, smearing your black mascara. We will continue with Queen Kunti's prayers, and they are so beautiful and they resonate so much wisdom coming out from the association Queen Kunti had along with the rest of her family with Krishna. Krishna was his nephew in the incarnation as Krishna, but actually we know Krishna is the Lord of the universe, and Kunti has described beautifully everything, and it's worth reading the purports of chapter 8 in first canto if you are interested. But Krishna Dharma Prabhu and Mataji have described them beautifully in simple language to us. So thank you for joining, and we'll continue with these prayers next time. Hariam Tat Sat, Hare Krishna.